Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Many of us have dreamt of going to space as a child and as an adult. Many more of us have been dreaming about it recently after we saw the awe-inspiring pictures released by NASA from the James Webb Telescope. What is it like to actually go to space? To talk on this, we have with us today a very special guest, Mr. Mike Mongo. Mike has a huge following all over the world, and he's going to go to space very soon with Uplift Aerospace. Let us find a bit more about his upcoming space flight and also about a very interesting life he has led in the study of space. So, Mike, great to have you on the show. A great pleasure and a great honor to have you. Thanks for making the time and coming for this interview.
Jaya, good to see you.
Wonderful. So I would like to just start by asking, how big a deal is this? I mean, among the billions of people who have lived on Earth, just a little over 500 people have been to space, and you're going to be one of them. So how does it feel, and when did you start dreaming about it?
Okay, so I'm Mike Mongo, astronaut teacher, and I've been training students to be an astronaut teacher for 15 years. And then this past year, thanks to Uplift Aerospace and the Space Plus NFT Web3 aerospace program, I applied and went through that process. We made it to the 5 finalists. They were going to select 1 astronaut. And then Uplift decided that the 5 finalists played so well together that they created their first commercial crew. I got selected for that. And so now it has changed my life. It has definitely changed my life. It is. I started dreaming about being an astronaut when I was 4. When I saw Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins go to the moon at Apollo 11. I initially wanted to be a superhero. Grown-ups informed me that was not a real job. And so I asked if astronaut was a real job. And they let me know it was. And so that's when I decided I will be an astronaut. However,
you really think that it's going to come true one day?
I'm 57 now, and at 42, when I started being an astronaut teacher, I didn't think I was going to get to be an astronaut. That was 2006, I think, and 2007, and there was no Virgin Galactic was an idea. There was no SpaceX. There was no Blue Origin. And here we are in the future, and everything has changed. So my message to students that tomorrow's jobs are in space in 15 years has become a reality.
Wow, a great way to start, and a great thought from you. I'll ask you quickly about your association with Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos, and how did it start?
Okay, so yeah, I emailed Jeff Bezos several years ago, maybe more than 5 years ago, and started talking to them about students in space, sending kids to space.
Oh.
And the funniest thing is they replied, and I didn't believe it at first. I was like, this can't possibly be Jeff Bezos, and it was. And
wow.
Then we met at the International Space Development Conference is that where you and I,
yes.
That's where you and I met?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. So go to the International Space Development Conference. Holy smokes. What, really, that now that, yeah. So then we met in person at the ISDC in Los Angeles.
That was which year?
Say again?
That was which year?
I think it was in Los Angeles. I think it was it may have been 2018. May have been 20.
Just before the COVID. Just before they stopped it for COVID, right?
Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe it was 2019. I can look it up.
2019, I think it didn't happen because I think 2019.
No, 2019 happened. Yeah.
Yes.
And so then after that, he founded the Club for the Future, Blue Origin's Club for the Future, and I interviewed for the director of that program on his encouragement, and I didn't take the position. I didn't get offered the position, but I did wind up creating some really terrific relationships at Blue Origin, and Michael Edmonds, and then Jeff Bezos has become a really fantastic ally of mine. When it got announced that that Uplift is going to outer space, and they've got a new commercial crew, of which I'm one. It's me, Ruben Salinas, who is the primary astronaut. It is Sydney Hamilton. She's with Blue Origin, I believe. And oh gosh, I hope I got that right. It could be SpaceX. I better look that up. And she's in Los Angeles. She's a rocket scientist, is the best thing to say. And Joan Melendez Meisner, and she is an engineer here at Kennedy Space Center. I'm in Cape Canaveral. And then Trent Tresh, who is director of human spaceflight training at University of Arizona, and just a great group of people. And when Jeff Bezos found out about it through a mutual of ours, Anders Paulson, I think there's like a billionaires club or something like that, and so they were having a conversation about our trip over dinner a couple weeks ago. I found out over the spaceport.
Oh, wow. So there is a lot of talks about the rivalry between SpaceX and Blue Origin, and you're saying actually she is from SpaceX.
I better find out right now. Hold on, let me Google this right now.
It was just interesting, so I just thought of pointing it out. But okay.
We can keep talking while I figure this out.
It's actually besides the point. I'll quickly come to about you. Let's bring the conversation back to about you. You have got a very famous book called the Astronaut Instruction Manual, and it also happens to be in Jeff Bezos' Amazon, right? It's a bestseller there. Tell us a little bit about the book, and it's going to be turned into a television series soon. Am I right?
Sydney is with Boeing. Oh my goodness! I'm glad you asked me, because I just looked it up. So Sydney Hamilton, Sydney, I love you. Thank you. Yeah, and I wrote the Astronaut Instruction Manual, and it became a bestseller in 2018. And in fact, when I met Jeff Bezos, I gave him 2 copies, one for his daughter and one for a friend of hers.
Oh wow!
And I told him if he needed more, he could get it on Amazon. And then that's true.
How cool is that?
And now that book it's a nonfiction book about for students 9 to 12, though it's become popular with grown-ups, and it is about the first kids in space, about getting permission to imagine ourselves living, working, and playing in space. And I don't really work with grown-ups in that regard, though the students I originally worked with are now grown-ups and are working in the program, and that's one of the things that has led to my success as a professional, is that the people that I worked with as children are now working space industry professionals. So
anybody has become an astronaut among your students?
I mean, Cyan Proctor and I have worked together for a decade, and then she went, and I was on her personal launch team last year for the Inspiration 4 mission. And because of that, she put me up on the SpaceX, put everybody on the launch team on G training flight, which we did while the astronauts were in space, which was great. It was amazing. The people who we work closest with are the ones, we all rise together is the best way to put it. Students, teachers.
What a great attitude. What a great attitude. I mean, we
peers.
all make each other strong. That's so wonderful. And something great happens out of it. So,
well, when you and I met, I was like, what, when are you going? Because you're one of those professionals that when at the International Space Development Conference, Jaya, that like you were a standout. You are a standout. So.
Wow, that's so wonderful to know. I wish I could also dream about being an astronaut one day. I think it might be a little too late, but no harm in dreaming, keeping the dream on.
I'm 57, so there you go. I don't think so. William Shatner is 90.
That's my inspiration. I'll keep thinking about that.
Okay, cool.
And I've still got a few years.
Absolutely.
To keep dreaming. Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's going to be turned into a TV series. Can you tell us? Is it going
the Astronaut Instruction Manual? Yes. So it's being turned into a television series. It was optioned by Alcon Entertainment, who did The Expanse, and I was there when Jeff Bezos picked it up at the ISTC. I was there when he made the announcement. I was there in the room with.
So is it Jeff Bezos' initiative to do this television series?
The series, I think, was originally on Sci-Fi. It got canceled, and then Jeff Bezos picked it up for Amazon Prime. I was sitting with
Oh,
Robert Zubrin from
when is it coming?
my series.
Yes.
So they just figured out a director, if I understand correctly. It is a process, and it is a character-driven series about the first kids in space. So the book is nonfiction, and the series is fiction.
It's nice because that would catch people's attention. I mean, it has to be a bit of
We can
fiction.
we can hope, Jaya. We can hope.
I'm sure because so many people are interested to know a little more about the nitty-gritties of things. And it's been a bestseller even with a fiction version. So I believe this is going to go down very well with the audience.
Cool.
Uh, so you also run this astronaut training camp in
Yes.
Scotland for kids. Tell us a bit about what you do there.
At the Saxonboard Spaceport, the UK's first vertical launch facility, and they'll have their first launch this year in November, I believe. And so I proposed to Anders Poulsen the idea of an astronaut job camp, a training camp for students last year in January, and then we staged. He forwarded me to Frank Strang at who is the CEO of the Saxonboard Spaceport. We began a conversation. He, me, and the director at the time, Yvette Hopkins, and it led to our first astronaut job camp last summer. Okay. And then this summer, I just got back. We just finished it, completed it. It's here right now. It's at the end of July. It's about to be August. So I was there June and July, and then I toured to the different schools. We did a virtual camp with students from all over the world, and then we did the in-person camp at in Shetland, in Unst, Scotland, and it was spectacular. And it is something that I very much realized that students in rural areas are underserved in terms of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and just presenting the opportunity to imagine themselves living, working, and playing in space by giving them permission to have that thought. It leads to fantastic results. Big things happen, and students go just immediately catalyze and go on to start pursuing real visions and real visions for themselves in the future, and real dreams of possibility. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with becoming an astronaut. The permission works in whatever thing that we have a passion for. In fact, when students ask me, how do I become an astronaut? My very first question is, what skill are you bringing to it? What talent are you turning into a skill that you're bringing to living, working, and playing in space? Because we don't train to be astronauts. We train in different skills that we bring to astronautics. Like that's an important distinction.
Like what are the things that you train them with in Scotland in the?
Oh, okay. Well, with students, I train them to be the best version the best versions of themselves. Wow, with students, I train them to be the best versions of themselves, and grown-ups too, really.
So what do you exactly tell them to do? What do they do during that time?
We have discussions about the future. We have discussions about how they see themselves in relation to the world. We have discussions about time. We have discussions about passion. I explain that I impart values that I believe that has been my experience will lead them to achieve whatever goal they're after. We each of us are different expressions of the phenomenon of life, and students are regularly undercredited with what they are capable of and what we are capable of as students. I think that we as grown
very big reality. So you bring out that in them which they have the greatest qualities about, right?
I work for it.
Nurture that. Wow, wonderful. How many is it from all over the world, or is it only from UK?
All over the world.
Oh wow!
How Japan, many Australia, India. I have students in the US, students in the UK, all over Spain.
And how many of them were there this last year?
I think there was 60.
Oh, that's a huge camp. And it's for how many days?
It is the in-person was for 3 days. The virtual is for a week. And I stage it twice a day, and we don't have a set pattern yet. It just depends on right now. It depends on the unfolding of the spaceport, and the opportunity is to do an actual camp where students stay over, just because the way that the spaceport is built around a already established resort property that they are able to utilize in a completely unique and unusual fashion compared to other spaceports. I was there when we did the groundbreaking for Spaceport America in Las Cruces, New Mexico in 2008, I think. And then what built around that. This spaceport is different because we now realize the attraction that a spaceport is, and how we can serve the local communities in many regards around a spaceport.
As
and
a tourist,
also
as a tourist,
as a tourist, as a visitor, as an opportunity for researchers to take residence for a time and produce all sorts of different bodies of work. There's so much to study around the spaceport, especially at the beginning of this is the advent of a genuine space culture. This is not old space. This is not new space. This is next space that is happening. So archaeology, sociology, all kinds of things.
Sorry, this is going to be the first launch from the UK, right?
Vertical.
I heard there was going to be something from Cornwall, but I heard something.
They launched like this, and then in the Saxford they launched like this.
Okay, and which is the company which is doing this?
It's the Saxford Spaceport.
And is it the spacecraft launcher is which company?
Oh, it's that the first one is going to be Lockheed. It's going to be Lockheed. So these are for polar orbit satellites.
Okay, so Lockheed is going to be the first launcher. Oh,
I believe so, yes.
Wonderful. I didn't know about this. Actually, there is a lot of interest to know about this first launch. Is it going to happen at all? And from where?
It's definitely happening.
It's definitely happening this year. Wonderful to know.
Oh, I believe it's going to happen this year, but it's definitely happening. I mean, last year I would have you could have asked me that question, and I would say it might happen. This year, after visiting, like there's a crew of 60 people working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, building the launch facility right now. Like, it is absolutely under development. It is really, and the people, another thing that's important to point out is that the people that are there are the people that I see at other launch facilities. We reach these momentums in creating and building things, and at that point, if you've been paying attention, when we pay attention, we can see that, okay, this has been decided, this is happening.
Wow. I just want to ask you a lighter, not a lighter question, a slightly different question. Do you think people who are in the autistic spectrum or who are differently abled, can they dream of being an astronaut?
Did you say autistic spectrum?
Yes.
I think that at least 2/5 of the people that I know in the space industry and space culture are on the spectrum. At least 2/5.
2/5.
So,
wow, that's
no question.
I mean, to get their attention, to make them focus and do all the things, it is possible, and they can also participate. Is that true?
That sounds like my life. I mean, like, you're kidding, like, getting a focus and yeah. So we there's all different expressions of autism and neurological neurodivergence, and so like it's not a broad sweep question. It'll depend on each individual.
Yeah, it is true. But there is a possibility. That's great to know. I would
More than possibility. I mean, like I said, there's such a large percentage of people who are neurodivergent working in the space industry right now. It's much bigger than a possibility. It's like it gives people the opportunity, and often.
Wonderful to know that. I'll ask you something. So two of the big tycoons at the moment in the space race is Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Sure. And it is understood that they are perhaps in for two slightly different reasons. One is Elon Musk thinks that Earth will not be sustainable and we need to colonize Mars because after some time it will not be possible to stay here. And Jeff Bezos wants to tap into the resources in space to make Earth more sustainable. That there are enough resources on space that you can bring in and perhaps solve all the problems on Earth. What are your thoughts on these?
I've never spoke with Elon Musk. When I'm around him, I don't engage really. With Jeff Bezos, I've had conversation. And so one of the things I know about Jeff Bezos is that he is an O'Neillian, and that is a Gerard O'Neillian. And that's a visionary from the 60s, 70s, 80s, who saw us having space civilization and occupying great vessels in space that were essentially small world ships. And that is a vision that has driven Jeff Bezos. What's
the name? You tell me again, please.
Gerard O'Neill.
Okay, Gerard O'Neill. Okay.
I think there's a movie about him on Netflix right now called the Final Frontier or the Last Frontier, something like that. The High Frontier. Mm-hmm. And it's about Gerard O'Neill. And so I can't speak to what the one person's vision for a space program or a space ship company and what the incentive is. And I see people talk about it, but I can't say personally. Whereas with Jeff Bezos, I know what the idea is, and I'm aligned with that idea. My own version of that is that we can solve all the challenges we face on Earth by solving for space. And that's why I encourage students to pursue careers in space, because I see it as the way that we solve for the most common problems that we see in the world today, which are health and energy and sustainability, justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, what Dr. Simon Proctor calls Jedi space, and most importantly, the illusion of scarcity. I don't believe in
illusion of scarcity.
Yes.
Tell a little bit more. Illusion. The scarcity on Earth is an illusion.
Oh yeah, okay. So there are, for instance, speaking of people who are billionaires, we have a small group of people. There are more people that have been in space than there are people who are billionaires, and we have a small group of people who have way too much. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then we have this large group of people, almost everyone, who don't have enough. And so if you pose that to a child and you say, here's the situation, we have this one group who has way too much and we have this other group who doesn't have enough. How do we solve that? A child can solve that because that's an arithmetic problem. We move this part and it's just a redistribution of wealth and resources. And some people get hung up on like, oh, I can't stand this person. I can't stand this billionaire. I can't stand them. I can't stand them. But that's not helpful. And it's not the problem. It's not the person. It's the role. It's the role that we have created. And we get to create a new way of distribution of wealth and resources. If we had an extraterrestrial drop into the planet right now, a consultant from another world, and say, I will trade you some of these beautiful seashells that you have on the planet and these little pieces that you can't find anywhere else in the world in exchange for telling you what's wrong with your world, what you need to fix. And we'd be like, oh, okay, great, that's a deal. Like shells? Yeah, we'll do that. And then they're like, okay, so here's the deal. Can't find these shells anywhere else but except ours. So thank you for the shells, first of all. Secondly, is that you have attributed the role of distribution of wealth and resources to these individuals you call billionaires, but instead of distributing wealth and resources, they're hoarding it. And that's the challenge. So just like change that role and everything will work out. Boom.
How will space solve that?
Okay. So by solving for the illusion of scarcity is that there's not enough. It doesn't solve for the challenge of the structures that we've created in terms of economics and the existence of figures that we call billionaires. It doesn't solve for that. We get to solve for that just by deciding. But what it does do is it points, like we can, for instance, with energy. Energy is coal and oil. That's where we get our energy right now. I just tweeted about this. Coal and oil. Well, we can put satellites around the planet right now with technology that we have right now and collect solar energy that our atmosphere automatically deflects at a rate 90% greater than what we can get from the planet. We can collect solar energy outside the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is only 100 miles up. So solar energy outside the atmosphere, 90% greater than we can on Earth. We can beam that energy to the planet using microwaves. Nicole Stott, the astronaut, she spells this out all the time, every day, to any person, usually young people, who are willing to listen and hear the facts. We don't need to live in scarcity. We get to live in abundance. There is enough on the planet. You just said, how does space solve for that? All of this conversation, you and I are having this conversation because of space. You and I are having, not only are you and I having this conversation as on a personal level because of space, because you and I met at the International Space Development Conference.
The communication is through space.
But the technology we're using, it comes from, it was developed in the space program. That my iPhone, the glass, the battery, the microcircuitry that led to the invention of solid state circuitry, the GPS, the rechargeable battery, all of this comes from space exploration.
Yes.
All of it. And how many lives has the cell phone saved? How many people's lives has a cell phone saved? Did you know that? Jaya, did you know that over 50% of all information we have about global climate change comes from satellites? Over 50% of all information we have about global climate change. So all of the medical breakthroughs that we've had from developing a space program, the heart valves and kidney dialysis, and I mean, just keep on going. It's just one thing after another. I'm not having this argument about abundance and scarcity when I understand that there's enough in the world. I'm not a mathematician. I'm just murder at arithmetic.
That's a great thing to do. But wouldn't you agree that people still say it's not rocket science because they think there is something very ulteriorly difficult about it?
Grown-ups,
it's a
we
phrase
grown-ups,
very often used. We
grown-ups, yeah, we grown-ups say that, right? It's not students to say that. It's not children to say that. It's grown-ups.
We have somehow got into a tunnel of thinking.
Have we? I agree with you.
True. And then there should be more people who should come to your astronaut training camps.
No, not necessarily.
We do not burden children with the thought that rocket science is something difficult.
Jaya, you and I probably grew up around similar times, all right? So I'm a little older than you are, but the thing is that when I was growing up, we were sort of given permission to do certain things. I remember in high school when I was taught, I was given the opportunity to either take typing as a class, or computers. I had the opportunity as a ninth grader since 1979. Yes, And it was told to me, here's what was explained to me by the guidance counselor. 200 students in this class, maybe 250 in this my freshman class. And they said, you can take typing, which may be the most important class that you take in your high school career, which will almost certainly guarantee that you get a job when you graduate from high school, or you take computers. Choose.
Not so important to get a job.
Only 4 of us took computers.
Wow.
4. And I was one of them.
1979. Wow, that's
yes.
amazing.
And one of the other people in that class was Warren Bear, the billionaire. I'm using the B word a lot. Yeah, because we took that initiative. It was not children. If you had posed, hey, do you want to work on something that is going to define the future? It's called computers, or do you want to take typing? Like, students are going to be like, I want to do the future thing. But when it's positioned to us by grown-ups, by teachers, you should take typing, or you can take computers. Well, there you go. Like, who's to blame there? Is it the students, or is it the grown-ups? It's us. And we get to in our everyday life, Jaya. This is like you have a son. Like, that's how we met. You're a great parent. And I have a son, and like I talk to him all the time. Last night, like I got to get up early to do interviews this morning, but he got a new phone yesterday, and so he calls me at midnight. Like, I want to work on my new phone. Well, like that's our job. We get to, and why do we do that? Not only because we want the best for them, but because we want the best for the world. I want him to be the best version of himself. The students I talk with, I never know when I tell some students all the time, someone in this classroom may be the most important person in the entire world. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, why would one person be more important than the other? Maybe because they figured out that the solution to that math puzzle that I posed to you. There's a few people who have too much, and there's a lot of people who have not enough. Maybe that there's somebody in the classroom that I'm talking with that solved that arithmetic problem for all of us. Wouldn't that make them the most important person? Because they can dispel the illusion of scarcity and show us the way to acknowledge and own the abundance that is here for all of us.
Very profound thing to say. And your story about this typewriter and computer is a very profound way to explain to people how children should be dealt with, what is the way children should be taught by teachers, and also how much difference it can create to the lives of children because of the way you pose a particular sentence, just by that. So
you're speaking from experience. I can hear it in your voice.
That's true. Tell a bit about I can't let you go without talking a bit about your upside down specs.
Because I work not just, it's really easy to get people's attention. The important thing is to have something to say that's worth sharing afterwards. And I work with people for a specific period of time. I don't have their time for a long time. I get the message across that tomorrow's jobs are in space, and they have permission to imagine themselves living, working, and playing in space. And that's the message I teach with students. With grown-ups, for some reason, we forget who we were as students and what the experience is like. And if I walk into a room and my glasses were like this, then that we would just grab our phone and, hi, I'm Mike Mongo, astronaut teacher, and go back to whatever we're doing over here. But when I walk in and my glasses are like this, hi, my name is Mike Mongo, I'm an astronaut teacher. I have their attention just like that. And that's the thing. It's easy to get people's attention. The important thing is that's something to say that's worth sharing afterwards.
You get asked a lot of interesting questions on that. I remember one guy in the lift, if you remember the ISTC conference, and you made a very smart reply to that.
Oh, you remember? Oh gosh. Oh. Because sometimes, sometimes people like come at us like they're smarter than us. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, so you're smarter than me. Nice.
Well, I wouldn't forget that. The other thing is, I would like to ask you, when you first saw the pictures of James Webb Telescope, the pictures, what thoughts did you have in mind? What was the feeling that it gave you?
I love the fact that that all of those, like the very first image that they revealed was that showed the gravity lensing, and all of the different, all of those galaxies. And I don't know that it hits that our galaxy. We used to think that our galaxy had 100 million solar systems in it, and then we bumped it up to 1 billion solar systems. And then we bumped it up to 10 billion solar systems in our one galaxy. It just keeps on, as our technology becomes more proficient, we begin to like, oh my gosh, this galaxy has 10 billion solar systems and more. One galaxy. And in that image, from
a speck of a galaxy in that. Right?
There's so many galaxies, and that's the furthest away we've ever looked away. And there's it's galaxies. It's full of galaxies, and each of those has solar systems, and each of those has suns and planets, and this amazing.
Earth, they have their own complications in one of those exoplanets over there.
It's beautiful.
It's beyond imagination. It's just gives a huge space within your brain, that a whole space has opened up in your brain to imagine that kind of a feeling. What is a top thing that you have in mind to see when you go up in space?
Oh, to see the Earth from space. That's the whole deal. I've done zero-G training. It's to see the Earth from space. It's my conjecture that the Earth is a type of life. The Earth is that parallels vegetable and animal. I think that it's a different type of life form that we have not identified or categorized yet. I think that when we compare the Earth to the other 8 planets in our other 7 planets in our solar system, that we can see that the other planets are not alive. And I don't mean that they're rich with life. I mean that the planet itself is alive. And I believe that when we talk about astronauts going to space, turning around, looking at the planet and experiencing what Frank White calls the overview effect, that sense of profound awe that astronauts then carry back with us from space to Earth. And it changes our perspective about nations and boundaries and limitations, that is experiencing a life form of that magnitude, that profound sense of awe that comes, and of perspective, because we're looking at something so large and so clearly alive that we can't wrap it around our heads that we are. This is different than, this is like being it's not like being an ant to an anteater. It's like being a single-celled organism to something of the magnitude of an ape or a giraffe. We can't make that work on our head. What we can do when we take away from that experience, when we take away that feeling of awe from that experience, is own our place in the scheme of things, that we're not the overlords of planet Earth. We are passengers, we're crew members, and we are stewards. And it's a mighty responsibility of this phenomenal place that we live. It's not a small thing what I'm saying. I am proposing that the planet is alive, and that it makes the whole experience significantly more phenomenal than we traditionally give it credit for. Instead of thinking of the planet Earth as a resource, thinking of it as an ally.
Wonderful. What are the top three things you tell students to inspire them to think of space as the next generation of jobs, of life, of exploration, of finding solutions to Earth?
Oh, well, you're just giving permissions to students to imagine themselves. Tomorrow's jobs are in space. They have permission to imagine themselves living, working, and playing in space. And then the last thing I say that is super important and relevant is that I give them the formula for success that is guaranteed, that is 100% surefire, that if they practice this, they cannot fail. It is guaranteed. And that is do what you love with who you love and help others. When we do what we love with who we love and help others, we cannot fail. It's not two of the three. If we do two of the three, it's a strike. But if we do what we love with who we love and help others, then we cannot fail. And I kind of got that from another ISDC conference. It was in Toronto, and there was a student who was at the poster contest. I was passing through. I said, "How you doing?" And they said, "Great." Someone just walked past me and told me that if I do what I love, I'll never work a day in my life. The 16-year-old was saying this to me. When we do what we love, we never work a day in our life. And I stopped in my tracks and I said, they were wrong, and I'm here to correct them. When we do what we love, we never work harder at anything in our life. It doesn't matter if we're a parent. It doesn't matter if we're a farmer raising plants. It doesn't matter if we're a doctor, if we're a teacher, if we have a passion for it, and we pursue it with just like food that we lick off our fingers. Oh my God, it's so good. That's how work gets to be. That's how our careers get to be. Is it hard? Yes, it's challenging. When I started out as an astronaut teacher, there were no astronaut teachers. I had people, oh my gosh, the people that told me I couldn't do what I was doing when I was doing it. The people that said there's no such thing as an astronaut teacher. The people that said, why are your glasses upside down? If I let each one of those people along the way stop me, I wouldn't even gotten through the first year, much less the first 15. And I realized that when I was a student, no one had given me that permission. And I had decided if I cannot be an astronaut, because this was 2007 when I even proposed this idea to myself, then I'm going to make sure that every student that I engage with from here on out knows that they have permission to live, work, and play in space because they happen to have been born at the exact right time. And if I can go to space now at age 57, then imagine what it's like for a person who's 12, for a person who's 15. The sky is no longer the limit. Pow.
What are the skills, the top 3-4 skills that one should have to be able to be an astronaut?
What do you love doing?
Anything? I mean, if
you love doing anything?
If you just love to be writing poetry, you can aspire.
If you're a poet, write poetry. If you're a poet, write poetry. If that's who you are, the great thing is that if you're a poet, you can do all kinds of other stuff. When people tell me, like a lot of students around the world love this sport called cricket, which I've never played, but I hear about it all the time. I mean, like I'm from Jamaica, so cricket is, well, my family's from Jamaica. And so, and then in the UK, cricket, like in India, cricket is a big sport worldwide. And students will regularly tell me that, they want to be a professional cricket player. Great. Every professional athlete I know does 2 careers. They do cricket or soccer, football, tennis, running, and they also develop another talent into a skill. They can be an accountant, they can be a business owner, they can be a lawyer, they can be a teacher, they can be a doctor, they can be a plumber. Plumbing is an amazing business. You don't even have to go to school to learn plumbing. And people in the US make upwards of $60 an hour, $120 an hour. If it's a late night catastrophe in the bathroom, someone's going to make $200 more than a lawyer per hour. And all you have to do to be a plumber is to have someone who likes you train you how to do it. You don't have to go to school for it. You get paid to learn. And is plumbing important to space? Well, ask the astronauts who have been on a space station or spaceship where the toilet stopped working? Ask, because there's plenty of examples. I know some personally. In the Apollo missions, one of the toilets blew up in a way that had stuff floating around. Important, plumber, space? Yeah, I think so. So if you have a passion, when we have a passion for something and we pursue it, that's what we bring to astronautics.
So do they have to study science to be an astronaut?
Study your business like homework. I always say this, study your business. Whatever your business is, it doesn't have to be science. It doesn't have to be language. It doesn't have to be math. It doesn't have to be art. It can be all of them. It can be one of them. Just follow the thing that you have a passion for. When Dr. Cyan Proctor was a teenager, it was determined that she needed glasses. She made up in her own mind, because she needed glasses, she couldn't be an astronaut. And then so she's like, okay, so I'm going to pursue what I love. Like, I'm going to go a different route than I have to. And she pursued geology and nutrition. She got a degree in geology and nutrition. She studied photography as a hobby. She has a passion for travel. She did that consistently, and education. She just kept on schooling until she got her PhD. And while she was going after her PhD, a friend called her up from her undergraduate years and said, "You may not remember me, but you left a big impact on me because you were always helpful. You were always so kind to people. You ran to help other people." And NASA has just released its qualifications for the next set and the next class of astronauts. And guess what? You can wear glasses. You should apply. And she did. That was 2009. And she didn't make it. She made it to the top 50, I think, maybe top 16. And she got a call from Sunita Williams, famous astronaut, great person. And so she thought, oh my God, an astronaut's calling me. They're picking me. Usually we do it that way, Sunita explained, but you did a great job. And I wanted to call you personally and say that you didn't make it, but you're fantastic. And she didn't take that as a loss. Cyan Proctor, she took that as a win. She's like, wow, I made it to the top. Like I made it that far. Like, wow. And then here's the interesting thing, is that 6 months later, NASA contacts her again and said, we are doing the first analog astronaut training at the high seas facility in Hawaii, and you are a fantastic candidate to be an astronaut. Would you be interested in being our first class of analog astronauts? And so she did a 6-month training in Hawaii at the high seas Mars analog training facility. First class to pass through that. And all of that skill and all of that she trained for as an analog astronaut led to the occasion where she got selected last year to go on a 3-day mission to space on Inspiration 4. The things that we think of as failures are just life positioning itself to give it's the unique thing that is made just for us. And that is hard for us to understand, because we think, oh, how come they're succeeding and we're not? How come they get to do this thing and I don't? Because life has got something special for you. It's custom tailored for you and for our life experience. Like, we are the authors of this. We get to write it as we go along. We don't need to compare ourselves to other people. By the way, Jaya, I didn't know this as a child. I didn't know this as a teenager. I didn't know this as a young adult. It was all the experiences of failure and of trying and of success along the way that got me to this place, as you know. Like, I didn't come here like this. All of the experiences and keeping on going, persistence, tenacity, determination, dedication, keep on going through the failures, hit the ground, get back up, be the kind of friend you want to have. This is the way forward.
No wonder you have such a lot of followers all over the world. You have been a friend and a huge inspiration to so many of them. I know that as I went to ISDC, I talked to many students who knew you and who had great things to say about you.
Thank you.
And could you tell me a bit about the training that you are going to go through before you go to space? Is it a long training or is it a short one?
So I start training. So with the Blue Origin mission, there's some special qualifications about the mission that I can't go into because of the NDA that I signed. And I can tell you this, that a lot of people go up on the Blue Origin mission, and it goes approximately the same route, distance, not necessarily route, but distance and height as the original Mercury missions. It goes to 150 miles up, and it goes about 2,400 miles per hour. And then on our trip, we have some special things happening that are as yet unannounced. That's what we're training for. And I get to go to the International Astronautical Congress in Paris in September. This is my first time attending the IAC. I had never attended before because I wasn't an astronaut. And now we're going, the commercial crew in our flight suits as astronaut candidates, and I just, it's an honor. And then we will get to do another round of zero-G training. We'll get to do astronaut training at the University of Arizona. I believe that we're doing a centrifuge, and we're doing a number of different things because our mission is centered around three core components: research, art, and philanthropy. The philanthropy that we are raising money for is Astro Access, which is about creating opportunities for space for people that ordinarily in the past had been prevented from going to space, whether they're neurodivergent, whether they're deaf, whether they're blind, whether they are have mobility disabilities. Astro Access now is training astronauts who have disabilities to go to space. And why is that mattering? We could have done that before, right? Well, and here's the interesting thing. People who are blind, for instance, in space won't know the difference of up and down because that's like, there's no visual, right? But what we can do is have walls with textures that show which way we are. How is that not to the advantage of people with sight? There, all of the stuff that we implement in terms of abilities and disabilities, most of it, a great deal of it, impacts all of us beneficially. That's the wonderful thing about this, and we missed it. The other thing is the SpaceX mission, SpaceX new spaceship, the Starship, it holds up to 100 people at a time.
Oh.
Yeah, the new spaceship. There's not going to be one Starship. There's going to be a fleet of Starships that send up to 100 people per ship to space at a time. That's a game changer. That's the ship that they're working on now. This is not an idea. This is a ship that has launched 15 times, I believe. Like we're getting it. They're building the platform for it here in Kennedy Space Center right now. They've been launching it from Texas. They haven't had a successful landing yet. It carries 100 tons of materials to space. That allows us to build infrastructure in space to do all of the stuff that you and I have been talking about this hour. Wow. So I really appreciate you having me on this call today. Like talking with you is always inspiring.
It's the same thing. One last question to you. We can't predict the future, but what is your imagination about where space can take us in the next 5 years?
Okay, if we can expand it out a little further than 5, if we can go to 10.
Yeah, go ahead and tell me your entire imagination.
Well, in the next 10 years, what we'll do is we'll show a way forward that will allow people to lead regular lives who don't necessarily want to go to space. I just want people to have enough to eat. I want people to be able to have accommodation and transportation, to have clothing, to have education, medical services. We can do that. This is the model. This is the future. That's the future. Anything less than that is not what I'm working on.
Wow.
And so in 10 years' time, we have things that show the way forward to that end. I'm not saying we're going to change all of that in 10 years, but we'll have things we have steps and core components that lead the way conceptually to this place. And we model those in behavior, in our actions, and what we're building to get to that place. Anything less than that is not acceptable. That's the way we used to live, and human beings have evolved, and we get to have a different way of being.
Wonderful. Such a wonderful, positive way of thinking in terms of being an astronaut, it was all about science, but you have a different perspective of philosophy, positivity, and inspiration all around it. Thanks so much, Mike, for being in this interview. A great pleasure to talk to you. Take care. Hope to talk to you again after you come back.
Yes. Okay. Look forward to it. Thanks, Jar.
Look forward to it. Thanks.
Say hi to your son for me.
Thanks. See
All
you.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.